In this video, we will look at the notation of notes in the treble and bass clefs. Two things determine what notes to play. That is, the location of the notes on the staff and the clef that is being used. For piano players, these clefs are the treble and bass clefs. Generally, the right hand plays the notes in the treble clef staff, and the left hand plays the notes in the bass clef staff. From the previous video, we know that the notes are notated on the lines and spaces of the staff, or the grand staff if two staffs are joined together. But which note names are available? The music alphabet consists of note letter names from A to G, so these are the note names that is written on the lines and spaces of the grand staff. The note name of C is somehow considered the first note letter name in the music alphabet. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, it is located in the middle of the grand staff on a single ledger line below the treble clef staff and above the bass clef staff, respectively. Secondly, it's near the middle of the piano keyboard. And finally, C major is the most commonly used scale and key. The note C an octave higher is placed in the third space from the bottom. An octave is an interval, which represents the same note name. But it is higher or lower in pitch, and therefore notated higher or lower on the staff. Intervals will be studied later in the course. The note C, 2 octaves above middle C, is written on the second ledger line above the treble clef. More than 2 ledger lines are possible above the treble clef staff and below the bass clef staff. When adding the C notes in the bass clef, we see that they move outward in a symmetrical manner from middle C, which I have notated on both the treble and bass clef staffs. The treble clef middle C is written on a single ledger line below the 5 horizontal lines, and the bass clef middle C is written on a single ledger line above the 5 horizontal lines in the bass clef staff. The Cs, which are 1 octave from middle C, are in the second space from the top of the treble clef, and the second space from the bottom of the bass clef, respectively. Similarly, the Cs, which are 2 octaves from middle C, are on the second ledger line above the treble clef, and the second ledger line below the bass clef, respectively. Let's add all the treble and bass clef notes 2 octaves from middle C. The treble clef is also known as the G clef because the line that the symbol curls around is G. This is the second line from the bottom. The bass clef is also known as the F clef because the line that's between the symbol's dots is F. This is the second line from the top. Obviously, notes in the bass clef are played lower on the piano than notes in the treble clef. To memorize the line notes in the treble clef, you can use the acronym Every Good Boy Does Fine. The treble clef spaces spell face. When dealing with the bass clef, each position on the staff is 2 note letter names higher than the treble clef notes. For example, the bottom line note, which is the note E on the treble clef staff, is now G on the bass clef staff. Now, let's add the remaining note names. Sight reading is the ability to read and perform a piece of music in music notation that the performer has not seen before. To figure out which notes to play, you can use the acronym and word in the treble clef, as well as the displacement of 2 note letter names in the bass clef. Personally, I'm using a few landmark notes, counting up and down the music alphabet, and intervals to figure out what notes to play. Middle C is probably the most important note, so this is an obvious landmark note. Furthermore, it's a good idea to learn and memorize the location of the other C notes 2 octaves from middle C. The note G is also a very important landmark note as it is placed on the line that goes through the center of the treble, clef's curl. The same goes for the note F in the bass clef as it is placed on the line that goes through the 2 dots in the bass clef. Personally, I'm also using the bottom and top line notes in each staff. That's E and F in the treble clef staff and G and A in the bass clef staff. So when you have these landmark notes in your mind, it is quite easy to figure out the other notes by counting up and down the music alphabet. In this process, you can skip notes. Hence, intervals can also be used. They are quite easy to read. Intervals will be studied later in this course. Let's see an example of this, starting on a landmark note and counting up or down the music alphabet to get to another note. We have a note on the third line in the treble clef. To figure out its note name, let's start on the landmark note G in the treble clef. The actual note is higher on the staff, so we will count up from the landmark note G. Going up one note letter name from the note G, we get to the note A, which is the first note letter name in the music alphabet. After the note A, the next note in the music alphabet is the note B. So the note on the third line of the treble clef is B. After the video on intervals, you will know that the interval from G up to B is a third interval, and so you will quickly read the distance, skip the note A when counting up the music alphabet, and then transfer this to your hands. Normally, there's a little more space between the two staffs and lyrics in the middle. Therefore, treble clef notes can be notated below middle C, and bass clef notes can be notated above middle C. Similarly, it's possible to notate notes further above and below the grand staff, though this requires more keys on the piano. Obviously, some of these notes far above and below the grand staff don't often get memorized because they aren't used all that often. This also applies to the treble clef notes far below middle C and the bass clef notes far above middle C. I hope you liked the video. The next video is about notes on the piano keyboard.